most determine the outcome of this series?
The same person who determined the outcome of Game 3, that's Anthony Davis. The fact of the matter is that if Anthony Davis shows up and doesn't look comatose, the Lakers don't lose. It's really, really that simple. This is one of the top 5 players on the planet. Let's call it what it is. This is a superstar talent player. He's that impactful. Not only is he good to drop 30 for you on any given moment, but he's good to block shots. He's good to change shots. He needs to rebound the ball more. I mean, there have been games in these playoffs. One playoff game he had 2. I think last playoff game he had 5 rebounds, stuff like that. He's too big. He's too dominant to be that soft on the boards. He's got to be more aggressive in terms of getting rebounds and things of that nature. But Anthony Davis is the real deal. And he did not show up in Game 3. It's just that simple. I'm not going to say he quit or anything like that. I'm going to say he never showed up. He damn near looked comatose. Now, that had something to do with foul trouble, no question about it, and a few turnovers earlier, so he was sloppy and never got into rhythm, rather. And not only that, appeared to be very, very frustrated. So he's got to be a bit more disciplined, a bit more focused for Game 4. If he does that, then the Los Angeles Lakers should win because he's patrolling the paint area. It's going to enable perimeter defenders to get out and be a little bit more aggressive defensively. Miami's not going to hit about 12 three-point shots. Jimmy Butler's not going to drop 40, and as a result, the Los Angeles Lakers will win the game. If he doesn't do that and he shows up similar to how he looked in Game 3, then Miami notches this series, and we have a whole different discussion come tomorrow.
You're still going to take the Lakers because they have LeBron James, and that's the guy who's going to most determine the outcome of the series, the best player in the game and the best player in the world. Now, I agree that in terms of matchups, Anthony Davis, there's nothing really that they can do if he gets rolling, and LeBron realizes that, and I expect him to use Anthony Davis that way and Anthony Davis to show up bigger. But it's kind of like you know what you're going to get from LeBron. So because of that, because you can count on it, it's kind of discounted in a way. Well, since we know what we're getting there, we can take him for granted. What are we going to get from Anthony Davis? That's not the same thing as saying that's the person who's going to determine the series. Do you think it's coincidence that they lose, the Lakers do, the first game of this series that they've lost? They've lost 1 game in each series so far in the Western Conference, where LeBron was told he was going to have a much rougher time. Do you think it's coincidence that they lose? And for the first time in his finals career, think about this. LeBron James was outscored, rebounded, and assisted by another player on the court. His team or the other team, doesn't matter. That had never happened to LeBron before, and they lost by this. It was a competitive game, and at one point late, the Lakers had the lead, but they did lose. LeBron James will determine the outcome of this series. The reason his teams are always in the finals is because he's the best player in the world. And the reason that they win usually when they have a legitimate chance. In other words, no one would argue the first Cleveland team that he took there with no other All-Stars had a legitimate chance. It's just amazing he took them there. So forget that finals loss. Let's be realistic. The 2 to the Warriors, they were not going to beat the Warriors with KD and Steph, 2 MVP players, and Clay and Dre. No one was going to beat them, and certainly not the Cavs. I'm not counting those. It's 3 finals losses we're talking about so far. Usually, when LeBron makes even the first loss to the Warriors, he didn't have Kevin Love or Kyrie. They were both hurt, and he still took them 6 games. Forget about that. That's 4 finals losses. Anytime he has a legitimate chance to win, he's always competitive, and usually he does because he's the best player on either team, and the same is true now, and he's the determining factor in the series.
Well, let me tell you something, Max Kellerman. If it were not for Anthony Davis showing up a bit comatose in Game 3, Anthony Davis is the MVP of the NBA Finals. The way that he performed in Games 1 and 2, he was absolutely positively dominant. He was spectacular in Game 2. And it wasn't LeBron James that was going to be MVP. It was him. Now that he performed the way that he did, if LeBron takes the bull by the horn, then obviously he'll be MVP. We all anticipate that the Lakers will win, but Miami can change things up, because if Miami notches this series at 2-2, suddenly they're playing with house money. The likelihood of Bam Adebayo, who's still questionable for tonight's game, doesn't play, and Miami finds a way to win, then he comes back, and that adds a very able, athletic, bona fide solid player into the mix with the Miami Heat. Who knows what could happen? But they'd have to get through the night. And there's nobody that expects Miami to get through the night if Anthony Davis shows up. LeBron didn't have an awful game. He didn't show up in the fourth quarter the way you would like him to. He was turning over the ball. He was missing three-point shots. He certainly didn't appear as aggressive as he needed to be. The Lakers were leaning on too many jump shots, shooting 14 or 42 from three-point range. That's unacceptable. But in the end, a lot of it was because they didn't have Anthony Davis to rely upon because he was a virtual no-show. He shows up, he's the difference, and that's why he's the key. I expect what I'm going to get from LeBron James. I expect to get big-time play from Jimmy Butler. Anthony Davis is the key.
All right, we'll leave it there. The Lakers can't get outscored in every quarter again.
Oh, okay.
Oh, did you no, Max, go ahead.
Go ahead, Max.
I didn't know if that was the delay or you.
No, I agree that
done.
AD is going to win. I agree that AD is going to win MVP of the finals. Even now, I expect it to happen. But I think that's because not just matchups. From the first game of the season, Stephen A., when we were both lamenting that LeBron didn't D up Kawhi, didn't accept the challenge, right? And on Christmas Day again. But the one caveat I made at the time, one caveat for me was LeBron, usually early in regular seasons, even sometimes early in playoff seasons, is diagnosing what he needs to do. During the early part of the season, his own team. How do I lead this group to the promised land? In a playoff series, the other team. What do we need to do, right? And I think pretty clearly, since we all knew it, LeBron knew it, AD has to be MVP, and we'll have a pretty easy time of it, a relatively easy time of it. And that's why I think AD will be MVP, because LeBron has seen that clearly and will make sure of it.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.